Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about how to go for higher consciousness?
So when I was 19 years old, I came across an organisation called Focal Universal that were running encounter groups in Perth, West Australia. And my girlfriend had booked into one of these courses and had given them, I think, $400 or something like that. It was quite a bit of money back in those days, about a month's wages. And I was a bit disturbed by all of this. I thought that someone had conned her. And so I went along to get the money back from the organisers. And they eventually talked me into doing the group. It was a 4-day live-in encounter group. And during that group, I got to see a great deal about myself. And I was so impressed by these men and women running the group, I quit my job and started working for them, selling their courses, because I could see clearly that there was people who had something different than me. They could see things that I couldn't see. Their consciousness levels were different. And I wanted that. I wanted to raise my consciousness levels. I wanted to be like these guys. And so I took it upon myself to do so. And that was the beginning, 19 years old. And so I did, I think, 9 years with this, with Focal Universal, going to all their groups, their encounter groups, going to their business motivation seminars and whatever else, because they were really into personal growth. But it was a great start because they introduced me to the idea that our belief systems limit us. And that it's these limiting belief systems that are in the way of higher consciousness and our inability to actually see how our mind is operating, because instead of watching the mind, we're caught in the dream of the mind. And then at the age of 28, I came in contact with the Rajneesh organization, Osho. And it was just another, wow, here's a guy who's got absolutely super consciousness. How do I play this game? And I attended months and months, I think 15 months altogether, of live-in intensives in his organization, having a look at myself, following his instructions, which were to watch the mind, be the witness of the mind. And I got to see so much about how my mind was working and how it was functioning well and functioning not well, depending on what it was doing. And consciousness levels were rising. Being switched on was rising, because what I saw in these men and women when I was 19 was they were switched on. They could see things in other people. They could notice things that I didn't see. And I wanted to know how they could do that. And in a lot of ways, it comes down to being present to reality, but also understanding your own mind, because you've been witnessing it, because you've seen how it works. Because when you can see how you work, you can see how the world works. Higher consciousness is brilliant, because ultimately you get to see how you suffer, how you create suffering in yourself through your own victim-orientated thinking, through your own resistance to what is. And because you see it so clearly, you don't get involved in it. And so suffering stops. Pain may still be there, but suffering stops because you're not resisting life anymore. In higher consciousness, you are responding to life rather than unconsciously reacting to life. And it's a way better way to go. Instead of seeing the small picture that you're caught in, you see a big picture because you're a little bit detached. Higher consciousness is the best thing a human being can do for themselves in this lifetime, ultimately leading to super consciousness, which is freedom from the mind, knowing self as truth.
We have a question. Do you have to be intelligent or have a high IQ to be able to have higher consciousness?
No, you have to be willing to witness the mind instead of getting caught in its stories. When you start witnessing the mind, becoming the witness of the mind, you're on the right path. As long as you're caught in the stories, even if you're analyzing, diagnosing, you're dreaming still. The idea is to develop this silent witness that simply witnesses the mind, and then you start to see through it. Intelligence is not required. What's required is witnessing.
What do I have to give to make it in higher consciousness?
I'm sorry, what did you say then?
Yes, what do I have to give
For what?
to make it in higher consciousness?
I think we've already covered that.
What do you think is the fastest method to raise my consciousness levels?
For me, it was finding people who were further ahead than myself, people who are willing to show me the way, teachers, in other words. Because if you try to do it by yourself, there's a lot of traps. It's so much easier to raise your consciousness levels if you're getting a mentor, an advisor, and ultimately, if you're into spirituality, if you're into super consciousness, finding someone who's awake to be with.
Do I need a teacher to achieve higher consciousness?
I don't think that's absolutely necessary. It's so much easier to gain higher consciousness if you have someone showing you the way. Because if you don't have someone showing you the way, if you don't have an example, how would you even know what you're looking for? And so my whole adult life, I've had mentors up until awakening. Then the mentors dropped away. But I had mentors from the age of 19 to 45. And as a result of having those mentors, consciousness levels rose. And as consciousness levels rose, life became a lot easier, not caught in the dramas of lower consciousness, victim-orientated thinking, not caught in worry, not caught in running guilt on myself, learning to accept and love myself as I was, or as I am. I am very grateful to my teachers.
The next question has been written by Vanita. Hi Vishrant. Krishnamurti says, as soon as you say the word tree, you start seeing the real thing. I felt this when I was listening to music that is played just before Satsang. I touched the real, raw stuff. Can you please say something about how concepts stop us from seeing the real thing? Thanks, Vanita.
Okay, so we're watching the sunset together and it's actually happening and we're seeing the real deal. Then we shut our eyes and our imagination takes over and we're still seeing it in our imagination, but our eyes are shut and we say, how beautiful. We're commenting on a concept, an idea, a dream. We're not even commenting on the real anymore. We've left the real behind for a dream. And this is what a lot of people do. They live in dream. What about just being present to what is real? That's meditation. It's so lovely. All concepts are dream. Matter of fact, everything that you think is dream. The only thing that is real, ultimately, is beingness. And in beingness, this world appears. And to some degree, that's real. But what we think about it is pure imagination. It's not real.
Next, Neil would like to ask you a question.
Hello, Neil.
Hello, Vishrant. So, my question is that I've noticed that throughout the course of history, the enlightened men, they mostly never got the respect that they deserved. And in some cases, they were not even accepted by the society. But years after they have gone, many people start following them, worshiping them, but they never got all of that when they were alive in many cases. So why do you think that's the case with most of these enlightened men?
People who are awake are telling the truth. The truth is not a popular subject. People want to hear convenient lies. They don't want to be told the truth. They don't want to know they might be doing the wrong thing or headed in the wrong direction. And people who are awake are telling the truth. And people who are awake make people feel uncomfortable because they're rocking the dream that people are living in. Also, once a teacher dies, they're not dangerous anymore. You come hang out with someone who's awake and your ego is in danger because your ego is seen to be what it is, the problem. And so it's best to hang out with dead teachers. It's safe that way because they don't actually create any more trouble. They're gone. You really want to wake up. You really want to find yourself as truth. Hang out with someone who's awake because you're hanging out with someone who's going to take you apart. You're hanging out with someone who's going to show you all the lies you're living, show you where you're getting it wrong in the moment. But that's not popular. People want to be comfortable. It's not comfortable around someone who's awake unless you're sitting a long way away from them and you're just basking in their energy field. You get close and you're going to get taken apart. You're going to get free.
Right. All right. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you, Neil.
The next question is, how do I know if I have higher consciousness?
If you don't know, you don't have higher consciousness. That's how you know. If you have higher consciousness, you see things that other people just aren't seeing. It's really obvious to you. It's like living amongst the blind. The blind can't see, but you can see. So you say what you can see, and they can't see it because they're not conscious enough. They're blind. If you have higher consciousness, it's obvious to you. It might not be obvious to everybody else, but it's obvious to you. You see everything coming, you see everything going.
Why does it take so long to become more conscious?
We don't grow up in an environment that involves the idea of higher consciousness. We grow up in an environment that teaches us to dream, teaches us to go to school and learn how to remember things so we can pass exams. It teaches us at school how to live in our heads rather than live in reality. So by the time people have finished school, they're pretty much living in their heads to quite a degree, because that's what was required to pass exams at school. For most people, most adults, they never leave that dream. They stay in the dream of problem solving until they die. It is only people who reverse that, reclaim reality from the dream that they found themselves lost in, that get to be here now, which is really nice. In this moment, it's lovely. But if we're in our heads analyzing, worrying, considering, rationalizing, most people don't even realize that that's lost. They think that's real, but it's lost. You want to be real, you be present to here and now, not present to here, but present to here. You want to ultimately be found, have awareness be aware of itself. No self is truth. This is the best game. Up to you.
Why is intervention required to raise my consciousness?
Well, intervention ultimately comes from yourself. It doesn't come externally. You have to be the one that makes the changes. Someone else can't make the changes for you. You're the one that has to see what needs to be changed. No one can really see it for you. Someone might point at it for you, but you're the one who has to see it, and you're the one who has to do the work. You can go and hang out with very enlightened people, but that's not going to help you much unless you're willing to do the work yourself. If you're not willing, it's not going to happen. Really, it comes back to you. What are you willing to put in to raise your consciousness levels? Are you willing to reclaim reality from whatever dream you lost in? Are you willing to remove belief systems that contract you and keep you in resistance to life and hence keep you suffering? Are you actually willing to do that? Are you willing to drop victim-orientated thinking? Are you willing to be present? This game of higher consciousness is only for the willing.
With regard to willingness, what is the best way to become more willing?
I don't know the answer to that question. For me, I hung out with people who were further ahead and I wanted to be like them. So a willingness to move to change came because I could see that I was lost in a lot of ways and that they actually knew and could see and were more profoundly in the world than I was. I was still caught in dream. So my willingness came probably from ambition, and then it turned into a thirst, and then it turned into a love affair of truth.
The next question has been written by Manasa. Living amidst people who have no inclination for higher consciousness, sometimes even as a seeker, I have the tendency to get caught up in mind games. How to remain unaffected by the people around?
Yeah, you have to be dedicated to what you're doing. You have to be dedicated to higher consciousness. For me, I became very dedicated to openness because I could see that what keeps us in lower consciousness are the things that contract us and take us into resistance. And so anything that contracted my mind, anything that took me into resistance was seen as the enemy. So my practice was the practice of openness, to be present and be open all the time, no matter what was happening. And to do this, I had to remove all the obstacles, all the defense systems. I had to undo the mind. And in that undoing, witnessing the mind, undoing the mind, consciousness levels rose to a level where the mind remained equanimous even when under fire.
Would sitting in Satsang be enough to raise my consciousness levels?
Temporarily, because it gives you clarity. But what happens for a lot of people is they sit in Satsang and they get hooked on the energy field, because it's very beautiful to sit in Satsang. There's a lovely energy field and the mind can rest in it and bathe in it. But unless you have removed the obstacles that are in the way of higher consciousness, after you leave Satsang, and you will lose the clarity and you will go back to where you were before, dreaming. This game of higher consciousness is for those who are willing to work on their minds, to prepare their minds for higher consciousness and super consciousness. Those who just want to take a back seat, it's unlikely that much is going to change, really.
The following question has been written by a viewer. You have spoken before about how the beliefs constrict our consciousness. How can I go about removing these beliefs efficiently?
So something contracts inside of you, something goes into resistance. Have a look at what belief has been challenged. Have a look at what expectation on that belief has not been met. Now you're looking at the belief that is contracting you and keeping you in resistance. Undo it. You put doubt into any belief and you start disempowering that belief. And so all beliefs can be disempowered through putting doubt into them. An example would be the belief that people shouldn't betray me. How do I know in the big picture of everything that people shouldn't betray me? I can't possibly know that that's not what's meant to happen. I've instantly put a doubt into that belief. Then I have a look at myself and my own psyche. Betrayal is part of human consciousness. It's a part of the human nature. It's a part of what we do. We betray. A married man or a married woman looks at another partner, another person in a sexual way. It's a betrayal. Nothing's said, nothing's done. It's still a betrayal. We betray all the time. Watching pornography, and if you're in relationships, is a betrayal. Have a look at it. It's okay. Accept yourself as you are. But betrayal is something that everybody does. Yet we get so disturbed when we get betrayed. It's a part of human nature. I do not have a belief that people shouldn't betray me. So if that occurs, no contraction will happen, no resistance will happen. It'll just be what is.
The next question has been written by Anna. What is right? What is wrong? Who am I to judge?
Correct. Everything is as it is. What is right? What is wrong? Who are you to judge? The thing is, though, in the material world, we still need to make decisions about what to do and what not to do, because we live in the marketplace. We're not wrapped up in some monastery or ashram or in some cave somewhere where we don't have to do anything. We have to probably have a family, take care of that family, hold down a job, pay bills. So we have to make judgments all the time to make it work. But ultimately, everything is just how it is. And when we develop a mind that is willing to see life is just as it is, we don't contract. We don't get caught. When we see things as wrong and we get aggressive with it inside ourselves and back it with an emotion, well, we're creating suffering in ourselves. We don't need to do that. Life is just the way life is. No good, no bad, no right, no wrong, just the way it is.
The next question has been written by Tuli. Hi, in your experience of stages of consciousness, such as the fourth state, Turiya, or God consciousness before actual self-realization, is there a danger of becoming over-identified with stages?
Heck yeah. That's why I don't teach it. Because the ego loves to identify with something. So it starts to identify with different stages of consciousness levels, which are just as big a trap as identifying with being a barber, a hairdresser, or being a person who's in a relationship. It's an identity. And all identities are in the way because we are not a someone. We are not a something. We're not something that's been somewhere, that's going somewhere. We are pure awareness. All stages can be identified with. I don't teach them because I can see the trap in it. Be free. Go for truth. Ask the question, what's aware?
Next, Susha would like to ask a question.
Hello, Susha.
Hi, Vishrant. Vishrant, how can one be effective in the material world and yet say it is what it is, or the other way around, say it is what it is and yet be effective in the material world?
So walking through life with a state of acceptance allows the mind to be at peace. That does not mean that we can't move to change. And people make this huge mistake of thinking, well, if I accept that, I won't be able to change anything. Not true. We can accept whatever we come across and still move to change. But because we're coming from a place of acceptance, we're coming from a place of openness. So there's no resistance in the mind. The mind is open. This idea that we move to acceptance, we become ineffective, is just not true.
I feel like as I care less and less about the material world and I'm in this state of accepting, I don't want to change anyone or tell them what to do. And in that ways, I'm becoming ineffective, I feel.
Well, I'm like that too. I only help people who ask me. You know, I'm not out there as a missionary telling people they're wrong or they're right. That's not my job. I'm a messenger. I'm like a postman. I deliver a message, but only to those people who want the message, who are actually asking for it. Seekers who come and see me. I'm definitely not a missionary. You want to know something, you have to come and ask me.
Yeah. Well, I meant working with teams or working at workplace and managing teams or leading a team and just taking it as is. I mean, things get done, but do I have to? I feel I'm becoming ineffective in that arena as well.
Well, that may be a stage you're going through. I remember when the awakening first occurred, I sat still for 6 months every day because there wasn't anything inside of me that really wanted to move. And during that period, I probably became pretty ineffective. But then one of my awake teachers came along and said, hey, you've got to come out of this, you've got to be in the world. Don't hide your light under a bush. Bring it out. So I did. And I've been out in the world ever since. In the world, but not of it. And as far as being effective is concerned, well, I have to take care of a family, young family. Had to take care of Sangha. But from a place of openness, a place of acceptance, still getting things done, but easily, rather than from a contracted, resistant place. I think some people wake up and they become very mona or silent, and they don't do much at all. But my master, Osho, said, no, if you find the light, you take it out there in the marketplace and you share it. You be Zorba the Buddha, not just the Buddha. And so Zorba the Buddha is in the marketplace making a difference.
Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you.
I'm very, very warm right now, filled with warmth. Thank you. It's lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Lovely to talk to you, Susha.
The next question has been written by Vasu. The mosquitoes situation is funny. Are mosquitoes an examination-like thing from the universe, just as the society we live in? Also, what you are drinking looks very tasty.
It's almond chocolate milk. Yeah, with Milo put in the top, and then some ice cubes. So, because I don't drink milk, cow's milk. I drink almond milk and soy milk. It's really nice. But what was your question? Read it to me again, Tosh.
Are mosquitoes an examination-like thing from the universe, just as the society we live in?
Are mosquitoes a what?
Are mosquitoes an examination-like thing from the universe?
I'm not understanding this question. I'm sorry.
I think the meaning is, are mosquitoes like a test sent by the universe?
Oh, you mean when you're meditating and mosquitoes come along? Is that what you think they're talking about, Tosh?
I think that's what they mean, yes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Vasu's just put his hand up to talk to you.
Okay. Hello, Vasu. You need to unmute. Yeah.
Hey, Vishrant.
Okay.
This was my question. So, like when you're sitting and the mosquitoes might bite you or something. So, yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, well, I don't recommend that people allow mosquitoes to bite them on account that mosquitoes are responsible for so many viruses that can actually hurt human beings. It's not a good idea. But I do know what you mean by having something that is hurting you or distracting you during meditation. And for myself, I'm very much a Zen practitioner. I used to sit for 3 hours at a time in a half lotus position without moving, not even an eyelash. And sometimes the pain would come, but in surrendering to that pain, in letting go to that pain, I went into bliss.
Amazing. Yeah, in India, in my grandma's house, it was kind of a big challenge for me when I went there. But it's interesting what you have to say about this.
Well, when I was living in India, I had a mosquito net over my bed, and I used to sit on my bed and meditate because I wasn't interested in getting bitten by mosquitoes.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a interesting question.
Where are you, Vashu?
In Canada.
In where?
Canada, Toronto.
Oh, Toronto. Right. Nice. Northern hemisphere. You'd be in the middle of summer right now.
Yeah, it's there's a heat wave right now, so it's getting very hot.
Ah,
You were here in Canada as well, right? What was the reason why you were here?
I was in Vancouver. I left the ranch in 1985 and went and lived in Canada in Vancouver for a little while. And it was very nice up there. I like the Canadians. They're very friendly, open people.
Yeah, very true. And it's very multicultural as well.
Very, 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 yeah. I enjoyed myself. Canada reminded me a lot of Australia in so many ways, the Canadian people.
Exactly. And also the land, it's very inhabited. Both countries are very inhabited.
Yeah, a lot of space. Vancouver was very beautiful, but it was the only part of Canada I saw. So I didn't get to go to Toronto or any other city or even in the countryside. I stayed in Vancouver.
Yeah, the plan for me is to go there one day, and yeah, it's gonna be good, hopefully. And when
Nice.
you come here, maybe there's gonna be a Rajneeshpuram 2.0.
Ah, well, Raj, Osho was my master, and I am absolutely 100% grateful for everything that he has done for me. I loved his talks on Zorba the Buddha, inspired me to be in the world, but not of it.
Yeah, lovely human being. I see Osho in you. You're Osho to me. Everything is everything is one, and there's a lot of happiness when I see you.
Yeah. Look, Osho talked about having all these flowers in his garden, flowering. And in a lot of ways, from time to time, when I think of Osho, I think of myself as a flower that was in his garden that just opened.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you, Bessie.
The next question has been written by Anna. Are you judging?
Oh, heck yeah, Anna. You can't operate in the world without judgment. I know that people say don't judge, but it's not don't judge, it's don't judge from a place of contraction. You see, every time we walk, there's a judgment as to where our foot is going to go. Now, that may be unconscious, but there is a judgment. We decide that we want to go into the world and start a business. We have to make judgments about which way to go and which way not to go. But do we have to back those judgments with any form of resistance or contraction? The answer is no. And as long as we don't back those judgments with resistance and contraction, we don't suffer. But to say, don't judge, well, that's an impossibility. It's human nature to judge. We have to judge to keep going in the world.
The next question has been written by Kelly. Hello.
Hello.
Do you keep up with current world events, and do you have any thoughts on this to share?
I do. And the reason I do is because I'm in charge of the community here, the Sangha here. And being in charge of the community, I need to know what is happening in the world to make it okay and safe for the Sangha. And so I actually keep up with what's happening in Australia and what's happening around the world. And so I can be informed and able to run the community here in a way that serves the community and serves the neighborhood. To be uninformed is not a wise thing.
The next question is from Manasa. What kind of guidance should be given to children to go for higher consciousness?
It's easy. Go for higher consciousness yourself. Because children copy their mum and dad. Children copy their parents. You go for higher consciousness. You show the way. You role model for them. That's the best you can do.
The next question has been written by a viewer. Sir, greetings. Could you please tell us something about Maitreya Buddha or the Kalki avatar? Is it true about the immortal ruler said by Nostradamus?
I don't get into prophecy simply because it involves dreaming and it gives people a sense of hope. And I don't sell hope ever, because hope is a two-sided coin. On one side of hope is fear, and the other side is it's going to work, it's hope. So this coin of hope has this other side. Both are not real because both are projections to the future. And the only time that is real is now. So I do not sell hope. If you go into most Buddhist temples around the world, you'll find that as you enter the temple, there's a little sign above the door that says, abandon all hope. There's a reason for that. The Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, saw hope as the enemy of enlightenment. He also saw fear as the enemy of enlightenment, the two great obstacles. I agree totally. So I don't get into teaching about prophecy. There is only now. There is only here. All the prophecies are just dreams. Be here now. Find what's real here now. That's worthwhile.
The next question. Did you have people to confide in on your journey to higher consciousness?
Most of the time, not. Most of the time, I was alone with it because I didn't really have access to my teachers. And the people who were my peers weren't really going for higher consciousness as much as I was, so they were quite behind me. I had to leave Australia, Perth, and go and live in India, and go and live in America, and go and live in Italy and England to be with people who had higher consciousness, who I could actually take advice from. And so, no, a lot of it was done alone. A solo journey, learning to stand alone in surrender. It is one of the main reasons that I created a Sangha or a community here in Perth, West Australia. So people do have others they can confide in, others they can share the journey with, because it's way easier if you're surrounded by people going in the same direction as compared to people going in the wrong direction. The best thing someone who's into higher consciousness can do is hang out with people who are into higher consciousness.
So if I spend time with people in lower consciousness, is it inevitable that their patterns will affect me?
No, not necessarily. It depends how dedicated you are to higher consciousness. People who are lost in lower consciousness are usually in some way hurting themselves. Once your consciousness levels rise, you don't want to do that. Just because you hang out with people who have lower consciousness who may be hurting themselves doesn't mean you're going to copy them. But of course, it is best to hang out with people with higher consciousness. That's best. It's up to you. If you have nothing but a lower consciousness people around you, dedicate yourself to truth. Dedicate yourself to heart. Put the effort in. Make it so.
The next question has been written by Kelly. I'm curious how long you meditate for each day. Thank you.
If we look at the definition of meditation, Kelly, I'm in meditation right now because I'm present to reality right now. Now, if I have a look back through my life, for most of my adult years, I've been very present to what is real. I haven't been that interested in dreaming. For me, it wasn't safe to dream as a kid. I grew up in a dangerous environment. I had to be present to my surroundings. I had to be present to what was in front of me, beside me, and behind me a lot of the time. And so I developed a pattern of being present to reality rather than living in dream. It's up to you. What patterns have you developed? It's nice to be present because reality is quite beautiful. We only really suffer in our dreams. Have a look and see. I encourage everybody to meditate. Meditation is now. When it came to formal meditation, because you might have been asking about that, I used to meditate every morning and every night for about an hour, sometimes longer at night, because I used to do it after my family went to bed. But meditation to me is every moment, being present to what is real every moment, rather than living in la la land. Up to you. I used to like to walk, and I did that as a formal meditation as well. You're walking and you're watching your footfalls and you're watching your breath and you're feeling the wind on your face and you're feeling the sun on your skin. You're feeling your arms move. You're hearing the sounds around you. You're walking in Zen. I used to love doing that, but it's every moment present. I have no interest whatsoever in dreaming.
The next question is from a viewer. So, we are allowed to play in the world as long as we are open and loving. Are there any other conditions?
I'm not putting conditions on anything, but to be in the world and to be open and loving is just very, very beautiful. How about being present to what is real all the time? That is truly living in the world. When we have our awareness on our mind, we're not really living, we're existing in a dream that is not even real. To really live, we have to be with what is real. And everything is real except what you think. Everything. Meditation is being here now, present to what is real. And it's beautiful.
The next question has been written by Kush. How to deal with people playing tricks and having no remorse for what they have done to other people, and you having to deal with these people on a daily basis?
Well, I found that when I was working, and we're going back a long time now, I was working as an addictions counselor, dealing with drug addicts and alcoholics. And one of the first things you learn when you are trained as an addictions counselor is you don't trust anything that an addict or an alcoholic says, because the addictive part of it will say whatever it needs to say to get what it wants. And so drug addicts and alcoholics tend to become compulsive liars. In other words, they can't be trusted. And so I would listen to people and I would not believe them. But I'd show them a way, I'd show them what they were doing, I'd deal with it. But I didn't live in a naive world of trusting what they were saying, or that somehow they'd follow through on what they were saying. Because another thing, they tend to be flakes. And so I lived in that world for about 6 years, being an addictions counsellor. That was an interesting part of the life. Loving them, but not believing them. And at the same time, trying to help them get free of their addictive addictions, the things that were hurting them, because they wouldn't have been seeing me unless they wanted some help. As far as dealing with people who let you down, who are constantly telling you things that aren't true, it's difficult. It is difficult. You have to have your eyes open. You have to be aware of what's going on. It's a great way to become a meditator, to be totally aware of everything that's happening around you all the time. It's an opportunity to practice acceptance and surrender. So I don't see it as necessarily a problem, as something that you may be able to use to raise your own consciousness levels with through the practice of acceptance and surrender.
Do I need to be able to trust myself to become more conscious?
Funny question. I trust two things: silence and stillness, because I can't really trust my own mind, because my mind was programmed, like everyone else's mind, by somebody else, by my parents, by my church, by my government, by my peers, by my teachers, and an awful lot of stuff that was put in there genetically, which I had no choice over as well. So my mind watched itself for years and years and years, and it came up with a clear understanding that my mind was a bullduster, that it even told me lies to get along, to make itself work, to survive. And so I stopped trusting my own mind and started trusting silence and stillness and the inner knowing that is underneath it all.
The next question has been written by Anna. Living with lower consciousness. May this be because we have a lesson to learn?
See, people think there's lessons to learn and that somehow existence provides those lessons for it, as though there's some being up there that gives us all these lessons that we have to learn. I don't see it that way. I do see that we have to learn things, but I don't see that those things are deliberately delivered to us so we have to learn them. I know that we have to learn to surrender. I know that we learn surrender through acceptance of life. I know that the doorway to higher consciousness and super consciousness is surrender. And so the only thing that we really need to learn is surrender. Everything else, all the collection of knowledge, is probably a waste of time. If your mind can surrender, you have prepared your mind for heart, and you have prepared your mind for super consciousness, enlightenment.
The next question has been written by Tuli. I feel such a strong pull into stillness that it's hard to function, to engage the mind to live in everyday life. I'm not sure if this is a higher consciousness, as it feels like the most natural state.
That was a statement.
Do you have a comment about this?
It's true. Okay.
Next, Abay has a question.
Hello, Abay.
Hi, Vishrant. If I'm being open to people who have hurt me sometime, does that mean that I'm being loving towards them also?
No, it means you're being open towards them. But love appears in openness. So when we're prepared to be open, we're setting the right environment for us to be able to perceive love. That's all. It's not like you're necessarily being loving to them, but in openness, love appears, or it doesn't appear. But in openness, there is truly no I. The I itself exists as a form of closure. You open right up and there is no I. There is just nothing. There is just here and now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vishrant. Thank you.
Thank you, Abahi.
The next question. If you become so detached from the world through witnessing, what makes you care about people and the things that you want to do in the world?
Love. If it wasn't for love, I'd be sitting in my room blissed out to the max. Love affects my mind to a degree where I want to help other people, to a degree where I want to take care of animals, to a degree where I want to take care of the planet, where I want to take care of everything and everyone. Love is the motivator. Love is the true jewel of consciousness. And love appears in openness.
Did you experience more love since your awakening compared to before?
Heck yeah. I love everyone I meet. I love everything I meet. I love. The funny thing about that statement is it's understood because it's English, but I don't experience an I. And so the best way to put it is love. Love everything. But there's no I to love, so there's just love. And after awakening, so much stuff was just disappeared. It's like people think, oh, well, you give this up or you give that up. No, I didn't give anything up, really. It all just dropped away. It all just fell away. And as it fell away, there was more and more openness.
The next question has been written by Michelle. Hi Vishrant. You have mentioned that Satori is spontaneous, starting with small glimpses. I have seen online an opportunity to do a 7-day Satori retreat in Sydney. My question is, how can you put a timeline on Satori? Can Satori happen when it is forced in a group situation? Thank you for these satsangs. I'm learning so much.
Okay, so in the 80s, I did, I think, 3 courses called Enlightenment Intensives, which were run by Rajneesh people. And in these Enlightenment Intensives, they were 7 days long, and you'd be asking the question of someone, tell me who you are, they'd be answering it, and after a certain amount of time, it would reverse on you. And they started in the morning very early and went very late into the night for 7 days. And that's all that you were doing. It was called Enlightenment Intensive. For me, all I got out of it was a massive headache. Who knows why? It just happened. But I continued the self-inquiry by myself while walking along the river's edge that year. And after about 3 hours to 4 hours of asking the question, I started very early in the morning, 6 o'clock, I think. About 10 o'clock, something happened. It was like an echo. It went back to nothing, 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 nothing. And then the knowing of self as the universe. Now, I had no idea how long that lasted because all time disappeared. But it was such a profound experience of knowing true nature. It changed my life forever because it fired up the thirst in me to find that as self rather than continue living as ego. These courses that you can do can work. They can give people a taste of who they truly are, a Satori. But a Satori is just a glimpse. In my understanding, it's an invitation to do the work on the mind, and so the mind will support higher enlightenment. you get that taste and the mind falls in love with truth and becomes willing to do whatever it takes to facilitate it. So there is nothing wrong with doing those sort of courses. It might be easier online than it is in person. I think because people were concentrating so hard on it when I was doing it, they were whacking out a lot of painful head energy, and it was giving me headaches, or I was producing a headache myself through my own intense trying. But while walking on the waterfront along the river, I was very, very relaxed. I was very, very at ease. And I think it's only in a relaxed state of mind that Satori can occur, really. And so I don't have anything against people running enlightenment intensives. When we first started here running Satsang meetings, I think our first meeting was an enlightenment intensive where people were asking the question, who am I? But unlike the Zen methodology of answering it, you were left with not answering it. You just asked the question. A thought arises. What's aware of that thought? What's aware? What's aware? What's aware? And there's an attempt to turn awareness back to itself. And that may be the sort of Satori group that you're entering. I don't know. But it does work if it's done correctly. And it gives you a taste. It gives you a flavor of beingness, the flavor of your own true self. What's required to support that in an ongoing way is a mind that becomes equanimous, a mind that is not contracting against the world, not going into resistance every time things don't go its way, but a mind that is an acceptance of life as it is. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.